Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I am Lulling Lisa, hoping to lull you into a state of relaxation, sleep, or just entertainment through ASMR. I'm so excited to be here with this video because this was a long time coming. I asked you this a couple weeks ago. I wanted to give you enough time to see the message and respond and all that. And essentially, we've done this every year, I think, since I've had my channel. This could be the third one. And so basically, I asked you for a scary story. I said, it's that spooky time of year. I want to give you lots of time to share your spooky stories with me. I'll read them all in a future video. Here we are. And I said, has anything scary or unexplainable happened to you? We've done videos in the past, of course, so some of you have contributed again, which I love, because some of you in the past have just had the best stories, so I implored you to share your scary stories with me. I'm very excited. So I am going to be reading them, and all of you left them under the comment thread in the community tab, so don't forget to check out the community tab because I ask you for a lot of things there. However, I think one of you emailed me like the super long story. If my battery will allow it, I'm definitely going to be reading that as well. Sometimes when I'm talking so much, I just get so out of breath, so forgive me, but I'm very excited. And I should say, happy October. We are officially in the spooky month. I think someone commented this video and it made me laugh because they said MF, if you know what that stands for, September has only just started. And I said, MF, by the time all these stories come through and I get to film and edit, it will be October. And they said fair enough, which was sweet. So yeah, I did want to give you enough warning ahead of time, but forgive my mini little ramble. I just feel like, is it just me or is everything just flying by? I feel like the summer flew by, this fall season is flying by, we're already into October. So forgive me for wanting to be prepared, but I like these scary stories with you guys, so yeah, if you have any spooky content ideas for me for this month coming up, feel free to request them. And I would love to deliver. But now, without further ado, I will say that I didn't read all of your stories. I briefly kind of looked through them, but I didn't read them because I wanted to read them together with you for the first time. So usually, you know me, I comment on everything you guys send me, but this time I just hearted it because I didn't want to comment. My comment will be live as I'm reading them, alright? So, in no particular order. However, they decided to filter through the comments on the community tab. I will be reading them to you. So here are your scary stories, or simply unexplainable experiences, you can say. Alright. This first one is from the @Larky. Hello, you'll probably be pleased to be first. And you said, this one is from my grandmother who lived through World War II in Poland. Whoa. I'm excited for this one. I visited, side note, my sister's fiance is Polish. So I visited Poland and I actually ended up going to Auschwitz. I don't want to get into that because it's so sad, but World War II stories, especially through like that lens, is really close to my heart. I've read a lot of books on it as well. So yeah, if you want any book recommendations, I have a lot for you. But yeah, so I'm really excited for this story, so let's read. So, I'll say it again. This one is from my grandmother who lived through World War II in Poland. After the war ended, a lot of people died, of course, and many people started moving to different places for different reasons. Many wanted to leave the old memories behind. Others simply lost their old houses and needed new ones, while some were forced by the state to do it, just so the new post-war economy can work at all. The gist of it is that many people ended up living in houses left by dead families. My grandma, or I'm sure you'd call her your popcha, knew of two families such as this one. Her own mother and my great-grandma would tell her family that every time she walks around the house at night, there's a voice coming out from the attic shouting, "I will drop, I will drop, I will drop." And she tried ignoring it, thinking it was a ghost or a demon. Every day they checked the attic only to find it empty, of course, but every night it would go again, "I will drop, I will drop." Eventually, the brave Polish woman had enough of this supernatural nagging every night and responded, "Then do it and leave." And a loud sound was heard under the entrance of the attic. She went there immediately to check. What did this entity keep talking about? Only to find a broken box, which clearly fell from the attic, filled with golden trinkets and jewelry. Another member of my family, my grandma's uncle, heard this story and said, "In my house, the ghost is not hiding in the attic. They come to my room and make a mess every night," to which my great-grandfather called bull on it. Thus a challenge begun. He was invited to sleep at the house of his brother, and at night, right on cue, as the clock hit 11 o'clock, all the furniture started opening their cabinets, and things inside them started just dropping onto the floor, one by one, book by book, which woke up both men sleeping in that room. The uncle knew better than to have anything which can break, but he looked at my great-grandfather with a smug face, only for him to jump up and run away from the house. His brother every single day complained about having to pick up the books back onto the shelves, but couldn't afford a new house. So he counted his blessings and thought, "It's not that bad of a ghost if it can simply make a mess." Not as good as the one who gives you random gold, though, I would say. If you want to believe these were old ghosts, I won't blame you. I guess people who died during the war in Poland were not in the mood to kill more people after the war ended. One of them seemed to want to help a big family, such as the one my grandma lived in, while the other one simply felt salty, or maybe they were looking for something. Leave a like for Lisa's video, or the messy ghost will make a mess in your room tonight. That's so sweet of you. Thank you so much, the Atlarchy. Wow, and if you're familiar with the Atlarchy, if it sounds familiar, the Atlarchy actually left us in the past, I would say maybe last year, a imagination personality test that they made up by themselves, which was so cool. So yeah, thank you so much for always being a contributing member of this channel. I really appreciate it, and your story was fascinating. There was history and like the scary aspect, but without being traumatizing for sure. So that was a good way to warm us up here. Then next, let's see. Some of you just simply said you're excited, and some of you made a few jokes, but let's go to the next one. This next one is from SVA60CYYZ59. I don't know your name, but that's okay. Maybe you can say so in the comments down below. If I read your story, let me know. And you said, "I once had a dream where I was flying on Northwest Airlines in the 1980s. When the plane reached its cruise, a massive gaping hole exploded into the cabin, and everybody's belongings, all disposable items and seat furnishings, were sucked out into the open sky. Everybody on board were screaming like banshees. The screaming was so loud that it pierced my ears, and I can still distinctly remember the sound of it today. The plane lost control as all of the control systems were damaged. The plane eventually crashed into a mountain. However, I had been ripped out of the plane just before it crashed. I remember falling into a forest somewhere in Japan, wondering how I would deal with the trauma for the rest of my life. Thank God I woke up right after." Wow, so that is just a very intense, vivid dream. Sometimes I wonder, like with these intense experiences, if it's sort of like a glimpse into a past life experience. Do any of you believe in that? I'm so curious about that. Yeah, it just fascinates me. Sometimes I do think that if we were to dig deep enough into our subconscious mind, maybe we can figure out a few things, but okay. Next, someone said, never mind, just remembered a different one. So maybe you already left another one, but let's see. So this is AUS Palladium, maybe? And you said, one night I woke up to go to the bathroom, and to do that I have to head into the house. You said I live in a mobile room. I went outside, but I immediately heard this low breathing sound coming from just across the fence. I went back inside to grab a torch to investigate. I wonder, Oz, if you're Australian and you call a flashlight a torch, I bet you. And when I came back, the breathing sound was louder and closer. I walked over to the fence, and when I turned my torch on, a kangaroo leapt up, jumping the fence and bouncing past me. It had been sleeping up against the fence. That one definitely made me jump. No, that's not very scary, but in the moment, for sure, it was scary. It could have been anything, right? I think that's pretty cool. I've never seen... Well, I've seen a kangaroo, actually, but I mean... They're not native to Canada, let's just say it that way. Okay, next is from Tate, T-A-I-T 565. And you said, not really scary, but when I was 9, I remember I was on an evening walk with my dad, and we saw something in the sky that we still haven't been able to explain. It looked like some combo between a satellite lantern and a drone. A satellite lantern and a drone. It was huge and bright and very high up in the sky, but it didn't move like a normal aircraft. It wavered back and forth for probably an hour. It would dance around, and because it was so far up, it was probably moving super fast. Both my dad and I are very logical people, so this completely changed our mind on the unknown. I love that. I remember we spent hours researching what it could have been. Nothing. It was seriously unexplainable. I'm convinced it was either an alien or some secret government experiment. Weird stuff. Oh, I love that. I feel like I saw, when I was at the cottage, or the cabin, whatever you want to call it, a weird lights in the sky as well. It kind of looked like a few lights, and they were hovering in just the same area, not moving, and then suddenly they vanished. But it was so far away, the lights were so far that it didn't have such a profound effect on me. But I feel like if you don't believe in aliens, I mean, I don't think you fully grasp the size of the universe. There's definitely aliens, that's for sure. Whether they want anything to do with us is another story, but I definitely believe in aliens. Next, thank you for sharing, by the way, all of you. If I forget to say thank you all so much. Next, this is from Scoob7623. You said, I work in psychiatry, and at 2 a.m, a patient came to ask, what would you do if I died? Me, well, I would write out the papers and wash the bed and write things down for you. And I smiled at her. Well, I'm not going to die at your shift! Exclamation mark. Me, well, I'm glad. The lady died at 7:15. I finished my shift at 7 a.m. That's pretty funny that you answered honestly. It's not like you said, I would be very sad. You basically just told her the procedure, so maybe she just felt like you were unworthy to have her die in your presence. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing that. A little bit of a funny, scary story. Okay. This is from Lulu Ravity, and Lulu says, oh, another one of these videos. Yay, I have another story. It was a dream, so I don't know if it counts, but I remember laying in bed and feeling a presence. You know when you suddenly get super freaked out and your skin crawls and stuff? Yeah. And so I turned to look around my room, and I swear to God, I saw something in my closet, like a dark shadow, and then I felt someone's presence by my ear, and they were just breathing super heavy. Literally terrified me. I couldn't go back to sleep after that. I don't blame you. This is from Gray Malkin 23. And Gray says, not sure if it 100% counts, but when I was little, my mom and I moved into a new house. And after about a week, we both started having dreams of the same little girl in a blue dress. I'm getting a little creeped out already. Something about like little child ghosts actually scares me. So it was super weird, but thankfully in both our dreams she was very friendly. Every now and then my mom would also tell me that she thought she could hear me asking for her, someone saying, Mom, or see me rush by the hallway when I was nowhere near that part of the house / was off playing in my room. Before we moved out, we were having a conversation about these occurrences and whether or not there was a little girl ghost in the house. One of my mom's framed angel paintings fell down from the wall. We laughed it off and joked that we'd probably annoyed the ghost, but it definitely creeps us out when we thought about it later. It could have just been a series of coincidences or a result of the stress of moving, but it was definitely a little weird. Love your videos as always and can't wait for the spooky videos to start coming in. Thank you so much for sharing. That of course definitely counts. That is so spooky. And in this case, I don't think it was a coincidence. I feel like there was definitely some kind of presence, but at least it was seemingly a friendly presence, so. Okay, next. You guys are scaring me. Next, Julia, IF1NJ. Hi, Julia. My sister's name is also Julia. So Julia said, I had a bad dream some time ago about a man with red shoes and blue jeans following me inside of my house and everything. I don't really remember more than that. And the next day I met a new person and he wore the exact same kind of red shoes and blue jeans. It scared the shit out of me. What the heck does that mean? That is insane. That's so specific and also so random. Thank you for sharing, Julia. That's scary. Next is from Santiago Lunaful. And Santiago says, my cousin used to live down the street from my house. He would come often to play video games and whatnot. Same, I had a cousin who lived down the street as well. One day it was around 7 and I had to take him home since he is 4 years younger and I was barely a teenager at the time. We rang his bell since he wasn't trusted with the keys yet, waiting for my aunt to come out and let him in. Nobody came out. We rang the bell again and even yelled out for his mom. We both heard my aunt's voice from inside the house saying voy, which means I'm coming in Spanish. We waited 5 minutes or so and still nobody came out. We just happened to turn our heads at the end of the street and my aunt was walking towards us, returning from a trip to the store, as we found out later. We both heard her voice specifically. His house is surrounded by houses in 3 directions and only has 1 entrance. Something from inside, but it surely wasn't, my aunt answered. What the heck? That is so creepy. Wow. Yikes. Thank you for sharing. That was very spooky. Must have been very scary for you to walk home by yourself after. Next is from Camelot English Tuition 6394. And you said, when I was 12-ish, I had a sleepover with a friend. We decided at midnight to go to the local church graveyard. It's about 300 years old. Wow. As we started walking around, he told me to stop trying to scare him. I had no idea what he was talking about. About a minute later, something pushed me over. My friend was still standing where he was. We both looked at each other, screamed, and ran out of there. I mean, what did you expect going to a 300-year-old graveyard at a local church nonetheless? That is so spooky. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Next is from Lee 00. And Lee said, one time I woke up at night. I think I was about 3. I looked out my window and saw a deer's head outside looking at me. And we live in an apartment on the 5th floor. Everyone told me I was just dreaming, but no, I wasn't. very spooky. It's spooky when dreams feel so vivid that you genuinely get confused after about what's real and what's not, because that's happened to me for sure. Thank you for sharing. Next is from Zivonika 1927. And you said, a few years ago, my distant uncle was very ill. He was hospitalized for a long time, and I haven't seen him for 3 or 4 years before he got ill. One evening, I was on a Discord call with some friends when all of a sudden, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It didn't spook me, I was just a bit shocked, but I wasn't new to strange things happening to me. It almost felt reassuring and kind. I told this to my friends, but we quickly changed the topic. After an hour or 2, my mom came to my room. I was still on a call when she told me that my uncle died this evening, so all of my friends heard it. I didn't connect the dots. I wasn't shocked and sad, but then it struck me. My uncle came to say goodbye and to reassure our family that he was in fact okay now. I don't know why he chose me. We weren't super close or anything, but he did play a huge part in my family. That's very sweet. Yeah, I definitely do believe that it was him coming to say goodbye, whether or not you were super close. I mean, it's still very interesting and sweet. Okay, next. And something similar actually happened to my mom when her aunt died. She was in the hospital, and I think my mom had a dream about my aunt, that they were hugging and stuff, and my mom told my dad, that's it, we're going to visit my aunt in the hospital today. And then my mom woke up a little bit later on, and she got the news that my aunt passed away, so super sad, very depressing, but it was definitely her way of saying goodbye, and my mom always had a bit of guilt for not going to visit her sooner in the hospital, but you can't have guilt over these things. Anyway, next is from Artificial Apocalypse. And you said, hi, my most scariest thing would be my first sleep paralysis experience I had back in September of 2019. I think I've talked a little bit about sleep paralysis. It's happened to me like once, and it happened to my sister too, where I feel like it happens mostly when you're sleeping on your back, so with your chest up. And my sister said it happened to her, and she said before she woke up, she saw like almost like a ghost, like a white face that spooked her, and when she woke up, she couldn't move. And we shared a room, so that really freaked me out. But anyway, sleep paralysis is scary, so let's go back to your story. Back in September of 2019, it was a stormy early morning with thunderous lightning when I woke up and found out I couldn't move my body at all, just my eyes. And then I just focused on what I heard in the room, some weird voice that goes, I'm glad to be here in this room. I'm glad to be here in this room. Repeatedly, then I saw this man sitting right at me against the door, just staring at me, a very ugly looking entity, and I just freaked out. I remember my pillow making a strange crinkly loud sound just before, when I finally could move my body again and get up from the bed, and my chest was in sort of pain, scary. Oh, that is so freaking scary. If any of you have had sleep paralysis experiences, you'll know that regardless or not if you see something, it's terrifying. The feeling of being awake and not being able to move or like speak. Oh, so scary. The fact that you saw this man, oh my gosh, glad to be in this room. That's giving me like goosebumps. And now I'm looking in this mirror and it looks like someone's there. I don't know. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. That is so creepy. Okay. Hopefully you don't have any more of those experiences, but it seems like you said my first experience, so maybe there's more. I don't know. If there is, feel free to share in the comments. Next is from Michael Newton 5873, and Michael said, I was in first grade more than 50 years ago. My school did a Halloween party, and one room did a haunted house. I decided to go in. I got to the I froze. Suddenly, a sheeted student comes toward me, arms outstretched. I yelled, "Ghost!" and turned and headed for the classroom door. I heard the laughing as I ran, but I went and found my mom and told her what happened. We went in with the lights on this time, and that teacher showed me what was going on. The ghost apologized for scaring me, but I've never forgotten it or went into a haunted house ever. Oh, so you were just scared by a ghost. That's very sweet. Haunted houses are very creepy, that's for sure. Next is from Nade. Nade5533 now. I'm excited to read Nade's because Nade always has such good creepy stories and I didn't read this yet, so I'm excited. So you said, ooh, yes, fun. Okay, I have a good one. Okay. I'd like to begin with my usual disclaimer. English is not my first language, so I apologize for any grammatical mistakes, but Nade, you write so well, so there's no need. Okay, so you said, I've shared a couple of my stories here before, but this one happened to my friend. A few things that you need to know first. I am from Mauritius, or Mauritius. Sometimes I don't know how to pronounce that. Mauritius. Mauritus, which is a multicultural country, and the friend in question is a Hindu. And traditionally, Hindu wearing attire is red. This is relevant to the story, okay? So, this happened a few years ago, back when my friend was about to get married. A few weeks before the wedding, she woke up in the middle of the night feeling hot. This was weird because it was in July, which was winter for us. Okay, she sat up on her bed to open her window when she heard the sounds of bangles clinking. She turned to where her dresser was, and she saw a woman from the back. She was dressed in a beautiful red wedding attire. Her hands were up, and she was putting bangles on. My friend thought it was her mom playing a joke on her, and so she laughed and said, "Mom, what are you doing?" That's when the woman stopped what she was doing and looked directly at her. This is where it gets creepier. The woman didn't have eyes. The eye sockets were there, but there was nothing in them. She opened up her mouth as if to say something, but not a single word came out. My friend was so frozen with fear that she didn't yell. She couldn't even move. The woman held up her hand and gestured for my friend to follow her. She then turned around and started to walk away. As she passed the cupboard, which has a mirror, my friend noticed that there was no reflection whatsoever in the mirror. The woman continued to walk away and vanish from view. It was only then that my friend started screaming, and her mom, whose room was just next door, came to see what happened. By then, of course, there was nothing in the room. She told me the story the following day, and I told her that it might have been a bad dream since she was super stressed with the wedding and everything. However, a few weeks later, she told me that she had told her grandmother what happened, and as it turns out, the grandmother saw the very same thing before her own wedding. What the heck? What does it mean? What does that mean? Whoa. Scary. Oh my gosh. What the heck does that mean? I need to know. Clearly there's some kind of a significance to that, because what are the odds? Wow. And the fact that it's red just makes it a little bit creepier, just because it's like, you can just imagine like seeing a red dressed eyeless person in the night. I don't know, that really scares me. Okay. Whoa. Thank you so much for sharing, Nate. Your stories are honestly like the best. They're always so cinematically spooky. Okay, next is from Hornet with a Glock 4347. You said, to be honest, I don't know if mine was a mistake or if it could have been something else, but it was like this. So I was around 10 at the time, and I woke up at around 3 or 4 a.m. And I was wondering what I was doing up so early. So I tried to sleep again, but after 5 to 10 minutes after trying to fall asleep, I heard scratching from one side of my wall to the other, and that side of the wall went into the living room. And we had a table with a computer on it, so I was like, what the F is that? But I was an optimistic person, person, so I didn't mind it really until I turned around to face the door, and the rest of my room, I was turned first towards the wall and I couldn't see anything. And that's when my door slowly creaked open, and it was this tall black figure, and my dad ain't that tall, so I entered a panic state and just closed my eyes, and then I heard close breathing, and then it left when I opened my eyes, and everything was good again. But 1 week later, we were fixing my bed, so we took out the bottom frame of the wood, and replaced it standing on the side to the same wall, and that night while I was sleeping, I woke up at the same time and tried to sleep, and while trying I heard scratching again, but it stopped sooner. I slid a bit further away from that wall onto the other wall, and then the wooden piece, shown in the emoji, of the bed, fell and would have hit my neck at a force that would have killed me if I didn't slide a little back, meaning I somehow saved myself from death at the age of 10. That is so creepy. Wow. And then Nate said in the comments, it could also be a hat. Whatever it was that woke you was trying to protect you. What matters is that you woke up in time, though. Wow. And then you said, yeah, you have more, but they sound fake. Wow. Don't be afraid to share them. I love these stories. Next, I think we are getting toward the very end, so maybe a few last stories, and then I'll try to read the long one. So this is from Joe Hall 5560, and you said, I don't know if it was real or an over-emotional child's brain, but my sister died when I was 3 of meningitis. Oh, I'm so sorry. And septicemia, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The night of her funeral, walking up the stairs to go to the toilet, I had to pass our room we shared. I was 6 at the time, and the door was ajar. I saw her sitting on the end of the bed, rocking her legs, and she turned to me and opened her mouth, but no words came out or anything. I got scared and slammed the door shut and ended up in A&E with a broken thumb. Oh my gosh, that's really scary. I feel so bad for you. I'm so sorry about your sister's death and that you had to have such a scary experience. Wow. And that's basically all the stories that you have shared. And I have another final one. I'm going to try to find it in my emails. And I'm definitely going to have to change the battery, I already know, but let's see what I can get away with reading. But thank you guys so much. So this one is from Legacy. And you said, greetings. I first wanted to introduce myself. I understand that my handle might be different, but you can refer to me as James. Okay, James. I had grown to take a liking to your content of unnerving stories and observed you sharing other folks' unsettling testimonies as well. That led me to want to share mine in the hopes of you doing the same. Thank you so much, and your story's quite long, but let's see what we have in store today. So you said, my story takes place back in the winter of 2000. I had just graduated with my best friend Joel. Joel and I grew up together almost our entire lives, seeing as we spent almost every summer, autumn, winter, spring, and repeat. During the winter, especially since we'd often use the winter break to go hunting when he was in town. I hate hunters. I'm sorry. I'm not. Who am I to talk? It is obviously more humane than the way I eat meat, but I just hate the fact that you could just end something's like life. Like, I go out of my way to just save anything, like even if it's a spider in my room, I'll make sure I take it, and I don't like to kill anything, but I'm a hypocrite because I eat meat, but yeah. But anyway, I'm not judging you. On winter break, Joe and I would fly out to West Virginia to his grandfather's property, which was located dead smack in the middle of a thick patch of woods. R.I.P. Papa Charlie, you will be missed. Aw. Joel and I had been hunting at his grandfather's place since 1994, so we had grown to be on the more familiar side with the whole operation on basic survival skills, and being acquainted with the outdoors and wildlife. With short time that we were getting ourselves into the hunting scene, we were still pretty much amateurs compared to other more seasoned outdoor veterans. But even so, we could still get a firm grasp on what we were doing. But on this occasion, however, we would forever question what it is really beyond our normal understanding of the outdoors. It was a cold and on our Christmas break of our senior year. We had flown out to West Virginia to begin our annual hunting expedition. We pretty much did the exact same thing on this voyage to the woods as we'd done in previous years. We'd got an hour hunting rifles and side firearms just in case we might run into trouble. We'll always have a couple of field rations, a tent with sleeping bags, 2 flashlights and 2 backup flashlights, a first aid kit and some canteens of water, among other things. We would usually go about 1 kilometer or 2 from my granddad's property, but being our senior year, we thought we might test the waters a little bit and adventure just a few more kilometers deeper. Okay, I remember venturing out and seeing the gorgeous afternoon sky that shone above us with beautiful pinkish blue painted colors being lit up by the gorgeous orange-yellow sun that had begun to fall to escort us into the evening. Joel and I had set up camp and began preparations for a campfire. We would usually do this in order to set up a position to come back to. After we finished with a set task, we would set our belongings down and assess our inventory. We would set down the unnecessaries and bring along with us the more important things we needed for a hunt. We'll always carry a meat kit with a field ration or 2 along with a couple of canteens of water and of course our firearms. After we conclude that we are all set, with usually scout the surrounding area and survey the tree lines that encompassed our camp. It didn't take long for us to find a decent spot for us to hang out for a bit. It already dropped down to the evening time, so we broke off a branch and stuck it in the ground to mark the trail that we had made so we could come back to it. Okay. After we finished sticking the branch into the ground, we headed back to our campsite and went to bed. In the early morning, we got up to begin preparations for our first hunt of the winter. It was almost yesterday, I can tell you, that the early morning sky had greeted us with a mesmerizing pinkish blue hue to the sky. It was one of the most beautiful skies that greeted us all winter. It was cold and the air kissed us with a smooth, gentle breeze. We put our coats, our boots, and caps, and thus began our expedition into the great unknown. We followed the trail in which we had stuck the branch into the ground and once again surveyed the area to choose which direction to move on from, which we had crafted with the marker. It didn't take long for us to spot a deer from our trail marker. It wasn't common for us to find a wildlife specimen so quick, but it wasn't unheard of either. Upon closer inspection, we noticed that the deer looked as if it were sleeping or resting. But that was not the case, so we had gotten closer to it and to get a more thorough assessment and found that the neck had been fractured and his left rear leg looked as if it were twisted and pulled right off and separated from the body. Blood and remnants of the animal's meat were resting on the earth around the dead animal. The smell of the carcass was also prominent. Mind you that this was about 100 to maybe 250 meters from our campsite. It was real strange for Joel and I to find such a sight during the winter. Wow, what do you think that could have been killed by? I asked Joel. I don't know, I replied. A bear maybe, said Joel. But wait, it's winter, said Joel in a voice of correction. Yeah, you're right, I replied. In my head at the time, I was thinking maybe something had ambushed the animal and put it out of its misery in order to come back to it later. Joel had to go to the area to maybe find the killer, if it were still lurking in the area. He looked and looked with no avail. After that brief encounter with the carcass, with further our survey expedition in hopes of finding game that was alive ready for us to take the kill. About an hour passed since the carcass and encounter. We found a couple of deer that numbered around the count of 3. The deer were grazing on a couple patches of exposed grass and a few patches of bush and tree vegetation. We waited until the body of the deer was a little more exposed for us to take the shot. Joel volunteered to take the first prize of the season. As he prepared to make the first kill, I scouted the surrounding region for any other game or anything else that might just seem like a threat to our attempt of hunting on our prey. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, as I've concluded to Joel. Joel had grunted back in acknowledgement and pulled the trigger for the kill. The deer in question, and what she thought was about 60 to maybe 80 meters away from where we were speculating. The deer collapsed and passed away, after which we then began our march to retrieve the body. So sad. As we did, we saw the rest of the herd retreat into deeper patches of the wood. I hoisted the body upon my shoulders, and Jill assisted me in doing so. After equipping the deer on our shoulders, we began our voyage back to our camp. A few moments went by, and the heavy and nerving feeling began to settle in. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I remember we strolled about 30 meters into our voyage, and Joel, out of sheer boredom, decided to take a fallen tree branch and whack it against a tree. I kid you not even 10 seconds went by, and a knock replied to Joel's knock. Joel turned to look at me and asked if he heard that. Yes, I did, I replied. The knock head which replied to Joel felt so random, as if it were a coincidence, but yet it sounded loud and clear, and the noise echoed through the woods. Joel decided to make another knock, but this time none replied back. I started to feel as if I was being watched again, and this time I'll let Joel know what I was feeling. Joel said he was feeling the same way. We were about halfway to our established campsite when we heard yet another knock. And from that position, from the knock we just heard, we heard yet another knock that did not sound far from the original source. WTF, Joel said as he turned to me. And this time it was about 12 in the afternoon when it happened. Whatever was making those knocks seemed to quit for the time being. We had reached our camp and begun skinning the deer. When we finished, we would keep the meat and throw out the remnants. This time, however, after hearing strange noises from the woods, I thought I'd just throw it out a little further from our campsite in hopes of not being found for whatever reason I didn't know. It was about 6, 7, maybe 8 in the evening. I can't remember, but it was getting dark, that's all I know. I let Joel know what I was doing, and so I went off to throw it as far as I could from our sight. In doing so, I had just finished casting it away when I felt yet another heavy set of eyes gazing on me. I threw the carcass down and looked up, hoping I could find whatever I felt was looking for me. I looked around at all for 360 degrees and couldn't find anything. Even though I saw nothing, I still felt as if I was being watched by someone or something. Of course, this was the time when stupid, forgetful, idiotic me had left my side firearm to dispose of a body. After a few moments of being real still, I heard a hard and loud pronounced thud about 20 feet to my left. I jumped and looked, and it was a rock. My heart was starting to race, and I started to ponder on the reason a rock would be hitting the surface near where I was standing. It was as if it were thrown. I looked at the rock, and then another one had landed 10 feet in front of me, not even 10 seconds apart from the first one. Now this was the moment where my heart started to really kick into high gear when I noticed the size of the rock that had just been thrown in front of me. This rock was about the size of a dinner plate. Now you've got to imagine the strength of who or whatever possesses in order to throw such a large rock in order to make the sound it makes when it drops down on the ground. The sound was loud, hard, and very deep and pronounced. I shouted, "Hey, who's there?" and nothing. I grabbed a smaller rock and I threw it in the direction of where the big rock came from, and again nothing. I still felt the heavy ice gazing upon me, and that's when I took off and started to run back to camp. I came rushing out of breath, and Joel is trying to calm me down as I'm trying to explain everything in one breath. He tells me to slow down and to explain what is going on. I tell him that there's something out there that's doing rocks the size of dinner plates. I think throwing. He calls my bluff and says that I'm crazy and that I need to calm down. He goes on to tell me that I need to stop making things up. I tell him that I'm not, and that he can go to the spot I was at to see for himself. This time I grabbed my fire alarm and told him to equip his as well, and he did so with a scoff. We go and we stand at the position where I found myself in. Now mind you, this time it's pitch black and there's no light other than the moon. He pulled out his flashlight and surveyed the surrounding area. We found nothing for a short time. I told him to watch as I began to prepare myself a rock as I was about to throw it. I picked a random direction and chucked it in said direction. A few moments later, whatever was in those woods replied with the action of a throwing rock in our direction, and this time it was an even larger rock the size of a computer monitor. Joel let out a loud F-bomb and shone the flashlight in the direction from where the rock came. There, deep in the woods, we saw a pair of eyes. These eyes were a goldish-reddish color that reflected the light that Joel had used. Joel and I locked our gazes on the eyes for only about 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. After that, the eyes vanished into the woods. We decided to tuck tail and run back. We decided that was enough exploring for the night and decided to go to bed. On our way back, I kept telling Joel, "See, I told you, I told you." I told him. For some reason, Joel had to look in its eyes that said that he was frightened but not fully convinced that what he saw was real. When we had reached our tent, we talked ourselves in and slept. It was about 2:30 in the morning when something woke me up. I lifted my head and all of a sudden I started to get a whiff of the most foul, most unholy, most nose-killing stench I've ever known to mankind. It smelled like stagnant sewer water that had feces and rotten eggs poured into it. After that I heard deep and heavy footsteps a few dozen meters away. I remembered hearing Joel snoring in the background, sounding like a stereotypical dad snore. Then out of nowhere, I heard something making noises as if it were trying to copy Joel's snore. I turned and faced the direction which it came from. With each cycle of Joel's snore, the creature replied with a perfect and eerily identical response as if it were communicating. I shook Joel up to tell him what I was experiencing. As I did, the mimicking creature suddenly stopped. As I did, I heard retreating footsteps, and I promise I'm not joking when I say I only heard 3 deep footsteps before it vanished into the woods. I took only 3, and the creature was gone. I still remember the smell and still remember the sounds of that night. After Joel had gotten pissed with me that I woke him up, he went back to bed. So did I. It was the last week of winter break, and we decided to go out hunting for just one more time. It was noon when we commenced this operation, and we did the usual routine. We went back to the site where we found the dead body, and it was gone, thinking nothing much of it, as there could have been a potential predator. We continued deeper into the woods, and sure enough, we found a little rabbit. I decided I would be the one to collect this fine specimen. Joel agreed and let me have the kill. Super easy and super quick, we collected the rabbit and made our way back to camp. Upon arrival, we noticed that our deer that we had shot had gone missing. The annoying thing was that we had hung our carcasses about 8 feet in the air via a tree branch that was suspended. Upon closer inspection, we noticed that our ropes looked like as if it had snapped and something had grabbed the carcass, yanked it, and pulled it with a branch. I looked down and saw large, deep, human-looking footprints on the ground beneath me. I pointed Joel's attention to the prints, and I compared my boot. 17 in men's size at the time, and my foot was dwarfed in comparison. 17? Maybe your sizing's different than ours. Now we were starting to get real unsettled real quick because something heavy, large, and tall had just stolen our prize, came and took off. At first I wanted to believe that it was Joel fooling around because of the whole rock incident, but that was negated real quick when I got a familiar feeling that I was being watched along with Joel. This time Joel had actually pulled out his hunting rifle and surveyed the surrounding area because this time he actually told me he was feeling watched, and I followed suit. Joel fired off a warning shot in the air and nothing. Whatever had taken our deer was gone. We decided to end our Christmas break the day after. We started packing up the more useless items when it came to hunting, but kept the general more important possessions out, like firearms, water, and stuff. Later that night, Joel and I were awoken by a loud and deep roar. The lung capacity for one to let out such an intense and deafening roar had to have been larger than life. The roar was loud, it was deep, it was heavy, and it traveled through the entire portion of our woods to our campsite and back. After that, we heard another wood knock and another and another. Joel and I grabbed our fire alarms and just sat there in our tents, unable to move out of fear that something was watching us as we slept. This time, roars were letting us know that whoever made the sound possessed the territory we were resting in and that we needed to get out. Joel, out of sheer annoyance, let off a shout that only seemed to piss off the creature more than what it sounded like originally. After Joel had let off a shout, another roar was let out, and this time it sounded more intense and a lot more angry. Soon after that, another roar was let out, and another and another. Oh my gosh. Okay. After the wars, rocks had begun to be launched in our direction. It was getting closer than the last. We put on our boots, our coats, our caps, grabbed everything, and made us feel safe like our fire alarms. We got out and shined the flashlight in all directions. What I saw will forever be ingrained in my memory for the rest of my life. With my flashlight, I saw a tall, hairy, bulky, and girthy creature. This creature was by no means a human being, nor was it a bear. It stood on 2 legs, and it towered over every normal-looking tree and brush. This creature looks as if it reached 8.5 feet to maybe 9 feet. The creature was a dark, blackish-brown color, and the creature was a dark, blackish-brown color, and the fur or hair, or whatever you want to call it, was 3 inches long, hanging off his arm. Seeing this creature brought tears to my eyes out of sheer fright. The creature was about 100 yards in front of me when I yelled. Joe quickly turned his head in the direction I was looking at and saw the creature as he let out a yell as well. He fired his rifle in the direction of this creature. The bullet looked as if it pierced this humanoid-looking thing, and this hulking thing absolutely tanked it. After it had been struck by the bullet, this thing let out the most terrifying, deafening, and most angry roar I've ever heard. After it did that and vanished into the woods, we decided it was no longer safe to remain in the woods for one more night, and we booked it back to my granddad's house. Duh! As our legs continued to carry us as fast as they could, we heard loud and deep footsteps pursuing us. I looked back to see the creature again, this time sprinting and charging at us. With each step, the creature let out a grunt and a deep inhale. Afterwards, ruff, 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 was the sound that I heard as it pursued us with his arms and hands outstretched and ready to snatch us. And I am in no way any bull crapping you when I say this, but with each step it easily cleared 5 to 6 feet. As we acknowledged the imminent danger behind us, we heard other roars and other grunts sound from our left and right. A group of these humanoid creatures were onto us, and they were pursuing us. I didn't want to think about what would happen if they caught us, but we just kept on running as fast as we could. We ran for maybe about 2 to 4 miles before we finally saw my granddad's house lights on in the patio. We had left almost everything in the campsite besides our fire alarms and what was left in our backpacks. We finally reached the patio, and we looked back as the creatures let out their roars and yelps. I remember having my clothes being ripped as I rushed through the brush and having my trousers being stand by my earring as I was being frightened to death. Joel was out of breath, and I was, and that was the day we finally decided to quit going into the woods. That's good. We told Granddad when it happened, and his eyes grew wide and his breathing slowed. He didn't tell us anything in response, and we asked him if he was all right. He said yes, that he was all right. He asked us if we were pulling his leg or something. We said no, naturally, as he can clearly see our ripped clothes and frightened expressions, that we were still plastered on our faces. He said okay and prepared us a cup of tea and sat down and began to tell a story that was passed down from his great-grandfather, which was passed down from his great-grandfather to his father and finally him. That story is for another day, for it is a long one and I don't want to take too much time. Thank you, because I'm out of breath. But long story short, what we had seen was Bigfoot. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope that maybe it'll get featured soon. Regards, James. Thank you, James. I'm sorry for hassling you about being a hunter. This was quite the long story. I mean, look how long. But we did it. So, if this is a true story that you're telling, I definitely believe that you did see a type of Bigfoot, for sure. Perhaps Bigfoot is just an alien species, who knows, but it's pretty amazing that the Bigfoot managed to run so fast, but you still outran it. Interesting. But I would love to actually hear the next part of the story, so if you want to include it in the comments down below, feel free to do so. Because this is it for this year's scary stories that you provide. I will like to probably read more scary stories, so maybe I'll find some online for us to read together, or if you have any links to any scary stories that you want me to read, let me know. I apologize for reading that last one so quickly, but I think it was like 20 minutes long, and I'm out of breath. But thank you, James, and thank you everyone who contributed to this year's scary stories. They were good. They weren't too scary, but some of them were terrifying. So thank you so much for sharing. I so appreciate you, and I'm forgetting now which scary stories of mine I've shared with you or not, so I think I'll just leave it for now. I did a bit of commentary throughout, so hopefully that gave you a taste of some scary things in my life too. But thank you so much for being here. Happy October, and let me know if you have any fun October traditions. I am a chicken when it comes to scary stories, but I do like them, and I do like scary movies as well. So I told my husband that in the month of October, that is the only month we can watch scary movies or shows. So in a weird way, I actually look forward to October because I like to, really celebrate the fall season and get all spooky and scary and watch shows. So we've always watched like The Haunting of Hill House and those kind of series. I believe there's going to be a new one this year as well, which is nice. And then we'll watch like a few scary movies and stuff like that. So I really want to watch Justin Long's Barbarian. So I'll be watching that this October. And yeah, I'm just super excited. I enjoy being scared, but I also don't, so I really just save it for 1 month. And then come November, it's already Christmas time for me, but hope you enjoyed this kickoff to October with these spooky stories. And until next time, I hope you stay safe, stay well, and if you have a really scary story, feel free to share it in the comments or save it for next year, because hopefully I'll be back with more scary stories next year in the community tab. Thank you so much for sharing, and you all mean so much to me. Clearly I wouldn't be here without any of you guys, so thank you so much. Sleep well.